How we doing, Erie? My name is Preston Nori, and I was born and raised here in Erie County, and I am proud to be your Democratic nominee for U.S. Congress here in the 16th District. And together, we're going to be here to bring real, lasting change to Pennsylvania's 16th District. And I'm running because Erie and the rest of our district deserves a voice in Washington that truly understands our struggles and fights relentlessly for real solutions. Growing up here in Erie, I was taught the value of hard work, resilience, and community that I carry on every single day with me. And just like Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, my family instilled in me the belief that we can work together to lift each other up. And now here we are, just 10 days until Election Day. Just 10 days to ensure that we elect people who fight genuinely for Erie, for our district, and for fighting for a better future. And this election could be decided by one single county. And if history has actually shown us anything, it is that it all could come down to here in Erie, Pennsylvania. Erie's called the shots in every single presidential election since 2008. So when they call us the bellwether county of the bellwether state, they're right. Where we do here in Erie in these next 10 days will shape the future for itself. Not just for us, but for our children, for democracy itself, and for the world around the globe. And right now, before us, here 10 days out from this election, we have two different visions of what America could look like and for what our district can look like on the ballot. On one side, we have Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, and Mike Kelly leading the MAGA movement. Their dark vision of Pennsylvania has cost us over 275,000 jobs. And their Extreme Project 2025 agenda will hit us even harder. And under Trump and his allies, just like Mike Kelly, we'd see cuts to wages, stripping bargaining power away from our unions and workers, and even a 20% sales tax on our essential goods. And when it comes to supporting families and workers, Donald Trump and Mike Kelly are the last people that I would trust. But thankfully, and I mean thankfully, we have a better option. Kamala Harris has dedicated her career to standing up for everyday Americans, while all of those other people try to just take advantage of us. She'll build an economy that creates an opportunity and places workers above the wealthy elite. And Vice President Harris and Governor Walz are fighting for every single one of us, for teachers, union workers, and every single person that makes up this nation. And at the end of the day, it's simple. If you want someone who looks like us, who will fight for what they actually believe in, we have that option here. Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are going to lead that future, but Trump and Kelly want to fight for billionaires, while Harris and Walz want to fight for American workers and our middle class. We've got 10 days. Oh, we've got 10 days. We need to make sure that every single person across this county, across this district, and across this nation hear the call. We will win together. Let's get out there. Let's elect a future that we can forge together.
Please welcome to the stage Jim Wertz.
Hey, good afternoon, Erie! Some of you may have heard my name's Jim Wertz, and I'm your Democratic nominee for the state Senate here in Erie County. How many early voters do we have in the House today? Oh yeah, getting it done early. I am a husband, proud father of 2 daughters, 15 and 11 years old. Wave at Wertz girls, there they are. And a 3-year-old son. I'm a teacher, and I'm a lifelong union member. For more than 30 years, our state legislature has been chipping away at union benefits, holding us back from a living minimum wage and the funds we need to fully and fairly fund our schools like this one. I got into this race for working families like mine and like yours, to make sure that the dignity of work means more than just the right to show up to your job each day. So I want to thank all the union members who are with us here today, and all the allies and all the friends and family for the hard work, the organizing, and the energy that's going to help push us all across the finish line on November 5th. For generations, organized labor has been the backbone of this Commonwealth. The union way of life has been sacred to many of us. Unions built the middle class, and the middle class is the key to building up the strength of Erie and our entire country. So many of us here tonight, as I look out across this crowd in particular, so many of us here tonight worked so hard in 2020 to defend the fundamental rights of our forefathers. And we marched in the streets of Erie. We stood shoulder to shoulder in Union City and in Northeast, from Albion to Girard and Edinburgh to Mill Creek, to restore our collective faith in the soul of America. We did it then, Erie, and we'll do it again this year. We'll do it for our children. We'll do it for the people who get up every day to deliver the promise of our community, the people who drive the buses, the people who work at the mill and press, the people who educate our kids, and the people we trust to care for our loved ones in their time of need. My friends from the State House to the White House, the stakes are incredibly high for everyone in Erie this year, and the options before you could not be more clear. On one hand, you have Kamala Harris. Yeah. A champion for workers' rights, a fighter against corporate greed, and a partner in the most pro-union administration in our nation's history. On the other hand, you've got the other guy. Do I need to say his name? We only need one word to describe him. What do you think it is? Oh, there were a lot of words there. How about we agree on this one? Scab. Donald Trump and J.D. Vance and their MAGA allies in Harrisburg don't just have atrocious records when it comes to workers and unions. Now they want to come for our overtime pay, our right to organize, and the OSHA protections that make our jobs safe. Trump gave tax breaks to wealthy and major corporations and undermined the rights of workers and organized labor to negotiate higher wages and to remove the rights to organize labor and negotiate higher wages and better working conditions. And because of Trump's administration on his watch, we lost more than 275,000 jobs right here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, more than 15,000 of them shipped overseas. Where are we going? We are not going back. J.D. Vance, this week, a scab among scabs, crossed a picket line in Pittsburgh held by the striking Pittsburgh Post-Gazette workers. Those folks have been out of work for more than a year, fighting for better wages, better working conditions. But this is par for the course for Trump and Vance. Their Project 2025 henchmen are running on a plan that would destroy the working class if given the opportunity. They proposed rules that would allow states to ignore federal labor laws that protect workers' paychecks and the right to join a union. They would repeal the requirements for federally funded projects to have what are known as project labor agreements to make sure that workers receive prevailing wage when federal dollars are involved. And they would make it harder for working people all across the United States to get unemployment when they need it. That's why I got into this fight, because we know that if the federal government goes sideways, that the state legislature is our last line of defense. And that's why we're working so hard to elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz and more teachers and union members and allies up and down the ballot this year. While Trump is working for the billionaires, Kamala Harris's opportunity economy will work for all of us. While Trump's Project 2025 is threatening to dismantle our Department of Education, Kamala Harris is working to invest in our students and our public schools. And while Trump will finish banning abortion nationwide, Kamala Harris will protect our reproductive freedom so that our children and grandchildren can start families when and how and with whom they choose. This November, ladies and gentlemen, the choice is clear, and it is up to all of us to vote, to organize, and to make sure our friends and family know what to do and when to do it, because our lives depend on it. The time now is to fight, because when we fight, thank you, Erie.
Please welcome to the stage Erie City Councilman Chuck Nelson.
How's it going? Hey, as I said, I'm Chuck Nelson. I'm a pastor downtown. If you're at Peach Street ever and you drive by St. Paul's, usually a church with a lot of the homeless people out front of it. It hosts the upper room. And I'm on Erie City Council. On my first term at Erie City Council, last year I was the president of City Council. And I'll tell you, in the year that I was president, we passed more legislation than the previous 3 years combined, and every piece was unanimous on the final vote. And I'll tell you, that's why I'm voting for Kamala Harris this November. Our vice president has made it clear that she is fighting for the American people. She will work hard every day to bring solutions and solve problems, as she's done over the last 4 years. She brings people together. I want you to look at the speakers here tonight. We open tonight with a son of a Muslim immigrant. We're going to close the night with an old Jewish man. We'll have black and white women up here after me. We are a big tent, and Kamala Harris is fighting for all of us, regardless of your background. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is only fighting for billionaires and his corporate large supporters. He's fighting for himself and his MAGA minions. He couldn't find a solution for the American people if it showed up on the resolution desk. He's got supporters, but he's not fighting for them unless they're billionaires. Now, I live in Erie with my 2 daughters, and I want them to grow up in a country represented by someone who represents and fights for their rights, for their freedom, and their futures. I want them to see a strong woman in the White House instead of an old man, unhinged and fragile and out of touch, that his only defense is to criticize and insult that strong woman. Now, I point out that I'm a pastor. And Donald Trump has the audacity to claim he's a Christian. And I'm going to say that's not the fruit we see. The Bible tells us to love our neighbors. And maybe Trump loves his neighbors in Mar-a-Lago, but that's not, I think, what the Bible's referring to there in your neighbors. The Bible tells us to show kindness and decency, and Trump has never been kind, and he doesn't know the meaning of the word decency. We are called to uplift the downtrodden and bear with the weak, and he gets cozy with strongman oppressive regimes. The choice is clear to me, Erie, and I hope it's clear to you too. I'm going to cast my vote for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, and I encourage you to do the same and to mobilize your friends and make a plan to vote. Our vote is our voice, and our voice can change the future. Thank you.
Please welcome to the stage Perrin Milliken.
Hi everyone, who's ready to win in 10 days? How's everyone doing today? My name is Perrin. I'm a volunteer here in Erie, and I am so excited to be here working hard for Vice President Harris, Governor Walz, and all of the Pennsylvania Democrats up and down the ballot. I want to share why I've been spending my days, my evenings, and my weekends knocking doors and talking to our neighbors. It's because I don't want to wake up on November 6th with any regrets. As young voters, this election will determine our future. And I don't say that lightly. Our democracy, our rights, and our freedoms are on the line. And it's up to us to defend them so that we have a fighting chance to build a future we all deserve. I want to be straight with you. We will not win this thing without continuing to grow our volunteer efforts. We know it from the data. This election will be won or lost here in Erie. And we have to knock on every door and make every single possible phone call that we can. So far, we've knocked on 63,000 doors. That's you. And we have made 311,000 phone calls. And yet, we still have a ton of folks here in Erie and in the rest of Pennsylvania who need another conversation to decide to get off the sidelines and support Kamala Harris. I know those undecided and unmotivated voters are out there because I talk to them every single day, and I need you to join me. And here's the thing, you don't need to be an expert in politics to make an impact. Often, it's actually the opposite. An empathetic conversation grounded in curiosity and shared values can allow meaningful dialogue. And all of you in this room are the best people to reach voters who may sit it out. You know the people in your communities the best, and you know how to show them what is at stake in this election. So I challenge you all to get involved. We need every single person in this room to sign up, not only to hit the pavement or make calls with us, but also to ring up on your neighbors, to text your friends, to sit down for those tough conversations with your loved ones. We will not win this thing without your help. This election, we have a choice. Vice President Harris is fighting for a new way forward to lower costs, protect our freedoms, make sure hardworking people can get ahead, and, like our special guest tonight, make billionaires finally pay their fair share. We know the dangers of Donald Trump and his Project 2025 agenda. He would impose a 20% sales tax and would raise costs by nearly $4,000 a year. He's promised to tear overtime pay away from workers, rip away health care from millions of Americans, and ban abortion nationwide. We can't let that happen. We won't go back. Put simply, a second Trump term would have no guardrails, and that is terrifying. But here in Erie, we have the power to stop it. We do not want to wake up the morning after Election Day feeling like we didn't do enough. So, with T-minus 10 days left to win this thing, I need everyone in this room to commit to two things. Number one, sign up for at least one, hopefully 3 or more, volunteer shifts before you leave here today. There are incredible volunteers around this venue today who can help you to sign up to canvass, phone bank, and we'll get you started. You don't need to worry if it's your first time. We have a community of volunteers here in Erie to help you. And second, I'm actually going to need you to pull out your phones. Everyone's going to do it right now. Hold your phones up. I can wait. We're doing it. Pull out your phones. Let's go. And great, I see some phones. We need to see some more. Nice. Okay. Write the names of 5 people in your life who you think might need an extra nudge to show up on Election Day. So do that right now. 5 people in your notes app, in your texts, however you want to do it. These are folks who are still undecided or who you might be able to persuade to vote for Kamala. And then we're going to start the conversation with them. Don't wait. We're doing it today. We have 10 days left. So all of you, that is your homework. We're in a high school right now. You're going to do that? Yes? So come join us on the doors or at the office or however you can and help us get out the vote for Kamala Harris, Tim Walz, and all the amazing Pennsylvania Democrats up and down the ballot. Because as Governor Walz says, we can sleep when we're dead. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. Get out there.
Please welcome to the stage Kyra Taylor.
Hello, everyone. How are we doing tonight? Wonderful. I am Kyra Taylor, and I am honored to be here today. I am a woman, a wife, a mother, and a community advocate. I am passionate about supporting Erie's Black communities and working towards positive change. I'm committed to creating a culture of Black excellence and wealth that spans generations in Erie and that inspires for years to come. And that commitment continues with electing Kamala Harris and making sure Donald Trump never sees the inside of the White House again. A second Trump term would be devastating for Black Americans. The black uninsured rate and unemployment rate went up while Trump was in office. He ran a harmful campaign, implemented a harmful agenda, and if he wins in November, his Project 2025 agenda will do much, much more harm. We need a president that doesn't just work for billionaires and his friends. We need a president who is working for you and for me. And that's why I'm doing everything that I can to send Kamala Harris to the White House. Her plans to build an opportunity economy will make sure everyone has the tools to succeed, from a $50,000 tax deduction for entrepreneurs to a $6,000 tax cut for new parents. I know, right? and $25,000 for first-time homeowners towards their down payment. And not to forget to mention Medicare expansion to cover hearing, vision, and at-home care. All of these issues are near and dear to my heart. Kamala's opportunity agenda for black men will lift up our boys and young men. It will invest in our small businesses and empower all of us to achieve our dreams. While Trump's plan for the economy only lifts up the ultra-wealthy, Kamala Harris and Tim Walz's plan is connecting with every corner of every community here in Erie, from rural to suburban to urban to the young to the old to white, black, Hispanic, new Americans, veterans, parents, teachers, and workers, for all of us. We need a leader who will not only inspire a better, brighter future, we need one who will work hard for that, and that leader is Kamala Harris. There's too much at stake to sit this election out. It is time for all of us to get involved and stay engaged. November 5th is right around the corner, my friends, and we all need to be knocking on doors, calling voters, support get out the vote efforts, and make a plan to vote. Do something. We all need to fight, because when we fight, and it is the privilege of a lifetime to stand on this stage and introduce a man who I have admired for years, a man who fights for the American people, a man who stands tall to defend democracy. Please welcome to the stage the United States Senator from Vermont, Bernie Sanders.
Thank you, Erie. It's an honor to be here with you today. It's been a few years. And I'm here, and I invite you to come join us in Vermont. Well, I am sure that you are aware that Pennsylvania is today a very, very popular state. Everybody loves Pennsylvania today. Donald Trump is here. J.D. Vance is here. Elon Musk is, no. It's important. He is negotiating to purchase the state. Hasn't reached a final agreement. He's a tough negotiator, but he's ready to buy it one way or the other. President Biden is in Philadelphia talking to trade unionists. So I think you probably all know why everybody is here. It's not only that we all love Pennsylvania, it may have just something to do with the fact that you have 19 electoral votes up for grabs. It may have something to do with the fact that the polls show this state is now nip and tuck a few points apart, and the likelihood is that whoever wins Pennsylvania will become the next president of the United States. So I am here today for a very simple request, and that is in the next week and a half, do everything you possibly can to make sure that Kamala Harris is our next president. And that means, you know, dragging your aunts and your uncles and your friends and your coworkers out to vote. As Pennsylvania goes, so goes America. As America goes, so goes the world. So you got a big responsibility on your shoulders here. So let's do it. I am not going to go on at great length about Donald Trump. Not worth it. But I do want to say, and I really want to speak not necessarily just to the people in this room, I think we're live streaming this, to people who may not have made up their minds. And what I want to say is, look, I don't care whether you're a progressive, I'm a progressive, many of you are progressives. I don't care if you are a conservative. I want you to think about something. And think about how it happens that somebody like Mike Pence, a very conservative Republican, who served at Trump's side for 4 years, who knows him probably as well politically as anybody in America. Mike Pence knows Donald Trump. He is not supporting Donald Trump. John Kelly was Trump's chief of staff. Chief of staff is your main guy. John Kelly, chief of staff, former chief of staff for Donald Trump, is not supporting his election effort. Mitt Romney, who was the 2012 Republican candidate for president of the United States. Now, Mitt's on the same committee as I am. We disagree on everything. You know, but Mitt has moral values, religious values. He knows Donald Trump. He is not supporting Donald Trump. Liz Cheney, one of the most conservative members of the House, again, somebody who I and many of you on policy issues have nothing in common except one thing. She believes in democracy and the rule of law, so do we. And she is not supporting Donald Trump. And I would ask my conservative friends, and I do have conservative friends, who are honest, we disagree on policy, to think hard why it is that so many conservative Republicans are not supporting Donald Trump. And the answer is they understand that he is a pathological liar. He lies all of the time. That he gets up and gives speeches that are very, very weird, to say the least. And that he is not morally fit to be president of the United States. That's what they understand. So their disagreement with him is not necessarily over policy issues, but it's really over temperament and character. And I want to say something to parents. I've got 4 kids, older kids, and 7 grandchildren, including some younger ones. And I want my conservative friends out there really to think hard. You know, as we try to raise kids, and raising kids in today's day and age ain't easy. You try to raise your kids, doesn't matter what your politics are, you try to raise your kids to be honest, not to lie, not to be a bully, not to pick on people because they may be a little bit different than other folks. Do you really want, as an example for our children, somebody like Trump who lies all the time and who is a bully? I think not. But it's not just, you know, it's not just Trump's character and temperament on some very important issues, he is dead wrong. Look, women have struggled for decades, since the inception of this country, to become first-class citizens. All right? Not so many years ago, if you could believe it, it's true, not so many years ago, in the United States Senate, 100 members in the Senate, there were 98 men and 2 women. You know, very few governors, members of legislatures were women. Women struggled politically to get equal say. Economically, women could not have many, many jobs throughout the idea, 40 or 50 years ago of a woman being a police officer, a firefighter, a construction worker, that's not women's work. In the military, not women's work. Women fought with their male allies to break down all of those barriers. And maybe the most important barrier that we succeeded in breaking down was finally saying that it is women, not the government, who have a right to control their own bodies. And Donald Trump goes around the country boasting proudly he appointed 3 right-wing Supreme Court justices who overturned Roe v. Wade. And there's another issue that is not being talked about enough in this campaign, and that is the entire scientific community understands that climate change is real. I don't have to tell anybody what we saw in Florida a few weeks ago, in North Carolina, my own state of Vermont, the forest fires we see in the West Coast, the heat waves in Europe, the flooding in China, the 120-degree temperature, Saudi Arabia killing people. Climate change is real, is an existential threat to the planet. Donald Trump believes, if sad to say the truth, that climate change is a hoax. What does that mean? It means that if Trump becomes president, the fight and the United States withdraws from the struggle against climate change, China will do the same, Europe will do the same, and it's over. So you tell your kids that the planet that we're going to be leaving them will in fact become increasingly unhealthy and uninhabitable. That's wrong. And that's just one more reason why Trump must be defeated. And I don't want to go on for 6 hours, but I'm going to give you one more. We are living in a nation today, and we don't talk about this very much, of more income and wealth inequality than has ever existed in the history of the United States. You got 3 people, Elon Musk and a couple others, who own more wealth than the bottom half of American society. Rich are getting much richer. 60% of our people living paycheck to paycheck. And Donald Trump, a billionaire, has the great idea that we should give more tax breaks to billionaires. But I'm not here to talk about Trump. I just wanted to drop his name in case you were curious. I want to say this, and I think we haven't discussed this enough as well. Look, I am an independent, the longest-serving independent in the history of the United States. So I'm not here to tell you that the Democrats are doing all that they should to protect working people. That's not true. But they're doing a hell of a lot more than the Republicans. That's for sure. Very briefly, because sometimes we have short memories. You'll remember 4 years ago during COVID when the people were fleeing into hospitals, overrunning hospitals, and Trump had done a disastrous job on COVID, and we had this massive economic downturn. People were not going to work. Well, guess what? Without any Republican support in Biden's tenure, in early 21, we passed the American Rescue Plan. You remember that? All right. And you know what that was about? We kind of forget about it. I'll never forget, as long as I live. I live in a middle-class neighborhood in Burlington. There were hundreds of cars lined up. They shut down a road. Hundreds of cars lined up for people who never in a million years thought they would be in that position, getting emergency food shipments from the Vermont National Guard. And that was taking place all over this country, right? People worried, how am I going to feed my kid? How do I protect myself from this terrible disease? Well, we passed the American Rescue Plan, and that put $1,400 into every working class pocket in America. We passed a new child tax credit for working parents. Remember that? You know what that did? That lowered the childhood poverty rate in America at that point by over 40%. We extended and improved unemployment benefits. We prevented working class people from being evicted from their homes. We poured billions of dollars into small businesses to keep them afloat, and into hospitals and into schools. We did all of that, and the result was that we came out of that pandemic recession far, far faster than anyone dreamed we could. Thank you, Biden. Thank you, Kamala Harris. For a long time, you've all heard, if you pay attention to politics, you've heard politicians getting on the TV and they say, oh, we got an infrastructure problem. Our roads, I don't know about here, but in Vermont we got real problems with our roads. Cars have been known to disappear into potholes, never to be seen again. All right, so we got problems with our roads, with our bridges, with our water systems, wastewater plants, broadband and so forth. People have talked about it for decades. Well, you know what? Biden and Harris did something about it. We passed the largest infrastructure bill in the history of the United States, going to put millions of workers in good-paying union jobs. We passed the Inflation Reduction Act. And that created hundreds of thousands of jobs, moving us to sustainable energy and energy efficiency. And one of the parts of that bill, if I may be so humble to mention it, is something called Solar for All. It's a provision that I put in it, $7 billion. You know what it does? It allows working class people, gives them the help, to put solar panels on their rooftops. Now, you know what happens when you do that? Happened to me. We put solar on our rooftop. Our electric bill went down by 80%. All right? So we can lower electric bills, cut carbon emissions, and that's in general what that bill is about. The other thing we have done, not only have politicians talked about our crumbling infrastructure for decades, they also moaned and groaned about the high cost of prescription drugs, right? Every politician in the world talks about the high cost of prescription drugs. But you know what? None of them, or very few of them, had the guts to take on one of the most powerful political forces in this country, and that is the pharmaceutical industry. These people, I'm chairman of the committee that deals with them. I know them. They have endless, underline the word endless, amounts of money. All right? There are 100 members of the Senate, 435 members of the U.S. House, 535 members. There are 1,800 well-paid lobbyists from the pharmaceutical industry in Washington right now. And you know what their job is? They're former leaders of the Republican Party, Democratic Party. You know what their job is? To make sure you pay by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs. Damn right. And the result of that is that 1 out of 4 Americans cannot afford the prescriptions their doctors prescribe. How insane is that? All right. Well, finally, and I've been proud to work with the President and Vice President on this, we have finally had an administration that had the guts to take on Big Pharma and lower the cost of prescription drugs. If you're a senior dealing with diabetes, you're not going to pay any more than $35 a month for insulin. We've lowered the cost of asthma inhalers significantly. If you are a senior on Medicaid, no matter how many drugs you take, you're not going to pay, starting January, more than $2,000 a year. And most importantly for the future, for the first time in American history, we now have Medicare negotiating prescription drug prices with the pharmaceutical industry. And by the way, instead of doing what Trump did and give billions of dollars in tax breaks to the richest people in this country, we forgave the student debts of 5 million working class Americans. Now, I'm not telling you that that is enough. We should be doing a lot more. But anyone who tells you that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris do not have a strong record for the working class of this country is not telling you the truth. So let me tell you where we are right now on some of the contrasts, because it bothers me. I don't mind billionaires voting for Trump. I expect that. But it does bother me, and you know them. There are some working class people who are angry, they're upset, and some of them are thinking of voting for Trump. And I want to speak to those people. Right now in America, we have a disgraceful federal minimum wage of what? $7.25 an hour. The result is that millions of people in this country, all over America, are working for 9, 10, 11, 12 bucks an hour. And I don't care if you're in Burlington, Vermont, Erie, Pennsylvania, or in rural Wyoming, people cannot make it on 10 or 12 bucks an hour. And I find it really quite outrageous and really, quite frankly, disgusting that you have a billionaire up there, and Donald Trump, or a supposed billionaire, who knows, claims to be a billionaire, and he thinks that we should not raise the starvation minimum wage of $7.25 to a living wage. That is outrageous. See, in Trump's world of billionaires, you know, they may not understand what it's like to live on 10 bucks an hour. Kamala Harris does understand it. She's going to raise the minimum wage to a living wage at least 15 bucks an hour. One of the exciting things, do we have any trade unionists here? All right. One of the exciting things that we are seeing in the last couple of years is the revitalization of the trade union movement and increased militancy on the part of workers. And that is a good thing. Working class people all over this country are standing up and taking on the outrageous level of corporate greed. And what is also happening is there are millions of other workers who would like to join unions. But what happens when these workers try to form a union, they're hit with illegal actions on the part of their employers who lecture them, who threaten to shut down and move to China, threaten to fire and do fire workers who are organizing. What we need to do is to pass what is called the PRO Act, which will make it impossible for corporations to act illegally to prevent workers from forming unions. Kamala Harris strongly supports the PRO Act. Donald Trump does not. Now, it's a funny thing, again, coming from the mouth of a billionaire. Trump was apparently here in Erie, a few weeks ago? And he gets up there in his speech, and he says, this is what he says. He's talking about overtime as a private businessman. He says, I hated overtime, paying overtime, time and a half, terrible thing. He says, and I quote, I know a lot about overtime. I hated to give overtime. I hated it. I'd get other people. I shouldn't say this, because it's illegal. But I would get other people in. I wouldn't pay. So this is a businessman who broke the law, in fact, tried to avoid paying time and a half, brought in other people at regular pay. But that's just not a talk he gave here in Erie. That's exactly what he did as president. He rescinded Obama's very good overtime rules, making it harder for working people to get overtime. Biden and Harris have taken the opposite approach. They have expanded the rules to allow more people in America to get overtime pay. All right, look, let me be, do what politicians don't often do. Let me be honest with you. Why not? Every once in a while, you know. All right, let me talk about an economic reality that most politicians don't talk about. And that the economy today in America is doing just great for the people on top. All right? Never in American history have the 1%, the Elon Musks in the world, ever had it so good. At the same time, we have, if you can believe it, in the richest country in the history of the world, we have 60% of our people living paycheck to paycheck. Do you all understand what paycheck to paycheck is about? All right, I grew up in a family that lived paycheck to paycheck, and that's where I got my politics, seeing the stress that took place in my family every single day. You know, my mom, we lived in a rent-controlled apartment, and my mom always had the dream of owning her own house. So she died young, never had that. But I learned as a young person that all over this country, there are people living under enormous stress. They're worried, how am I going to pay the rent? How am I going to buy groceries? If my kid gets sick, how am I going to afford to take her to the doctor? I'm getting hounded by bill collectors. Am I going to be able to pay my electric bill? That's what people are living with every single day. So bottom line is that in the richest country in the history of the world, we have got to create an economy and a government that works for all of us, not just the Elon Musks of the world. But it's not just that the three wealthiest people in America own more wealth than the bottom half of America, as disgusting as that is. It's not just that the top 1% owns more wealth than the bottom 90%. It's not just that the billionaire class has received hundreds of billions of dollars in tax breaks from Trump. It's not only the economic power these guys have, it is the political power they have as well. So I'm going to tell you something, you don't see it much on TV, and you're not hearing it discussed enough in the campaign. And that is, we have a corrupt campaign finance system. And that finance system allows billionaires today to literally spend hundreds of millions of dollars electing the candidates who will represent their interests and opposing those candidates who are standing up for the working class. And I wish I could tell you that it was just Republicans. I think it's more concentrated in the Republicans. It's Democrats as well. They have billionaires as well. What we have got to do, if we truly believe in democracy, one person, one vote, we got to get rid of this Citizens United doctrine. And move to public funding of elections. Now I'm here today to ask you to do everything you can to elect Kamala and Tim, but there's something else, and maybe I'm one of the few people who will tell you this. We want to get Kamala elected, but our struggles do not end the day that she is elected. We have a lot more work to do because, again, I can tell you, chairman of a major committee, I see the power of the billionaire class every single day. And you know, I'm sure in Pennsylvania, it's true in Vermont, we have a problem with opioid addiction. We got alcoholism. We got all that stuff. These billionaires also suffer from addiction. You know what their addiction is? It's greed and money. You might think, that if you're worth a few $1 billion, that might be enough. But it's not. They're really not. They want it all. They don't care how many people they step on. They're willing to shut down a plant in Pennsylvania. They can make $5 by moving it to China. They're willing to break a union in order to make more money. That's what they want. They want it all. And this is a tough fight. Tough fight. But that's the fight we've got to wage. So as we go forward, to elect Kamala, we also have to keep our eyes on a vision for America. Let me just touch on some of what I believe, speaking for myself, should be part of that vision. I would hope that all of you know that there is only one wealthy country on earth that does not guarantee health care to all people as a human right. You are living in it. Our vision has got to be to take on the greed of the drug companies and the insurance companies and create a Medicare for all single-payer program which guarantees health care without any out-of-pocket expense to every man, woman, and child in this country. The current system is broken. It is dysfunctional. We are spending, if you can believe it, twice as much per capita as any other country on earth, and yet we have 85 million Americans uninsured or underinsured. I know there are people in this room with large deductibles, right? So you got insurance, you're part of the statistics, good luck to you, but you got a $10,000 deductible you got to pay, and you don't have the money to pay, you can't go to the doctor. It is an insane system. People can't afford their prescription drugs. We're not doing enough with having enough doctors or nurses or dentists. So we need to keep our eye on the prize, do what every other major country does. Health care is a human right, not a privilege. We have got to lower the outrageous cost of prescription drugs in America. I've taken Vermonters and other Americans into Canada to buy the same exact drug for 1/10 the price sold in America. We are going to take on pharma. We're making some progress. Got a long way to go. At the end of the day, the American people should not be paying a nickel more for prescription drugs than the people of any other country. We are living in a very competitive global economy, and we need to compete effectively to have the best educated workforce in the world. I want you to just to think about it for a second, how insane it is that young people are going tens of thousands of dollars in debt in order to do what our country desperately needs, get a decent education so they can do the important work that is needed in this country. I'm proud that under President Biden and the Vice President, as I mentioned, we have canceled the debt of 5 million working class Americans. Our job now, 100 years ago, working class people fought very hard for free public education. We take it for granted, right? Back then, it was only the rich whose kids could get an education. And working class people said, you know what, we don't want our kids just working in factories or on farms or in fields. We want our kids to get a decent education. And we fought and they won free public education through the 12th grade. Well, the world has changed a little bit in the last 100 years. And it is time to make public colleges and universities tuition free. Turns out, I didn't know this until last year. Should have known it, I'm chairman of the committee, but I didn't. Turns out that 25% of senior citizens in this country are trying to survive on $15,000 a year or less. Half of seniors are trying to get by on $30,000 or less. Now, I don't know how anybody gets by on that amount of money, especially when you're a senior. We have additional health care costs and got to keep the house warm and all that other stuff. My Republican colleagues in Congress, many of them, in fact 80% of them in the House of Representatives, want to cut Social Security. They have different schemes, and maybe they want to raise the retirement age or cut back on the COLA benefits, whatever it is. All right? Well, I got a slightly different idea. And that is, instead of cutting Social Security, we're going to expand Social Security benefits. We're going to increase those benefits. All right, now how do you do it? Anyone here know how we do it? Lift the cap. You got a very smart lady right there. All right, right now, you have the absurd funding situation. Somebody makes $18 million a year, pays the same amount into Social Security as somebody who makes $168,000. Got it? So working class people end up paying an effective tax rate on Social Security far higher than multimillionaires do. If we lift the cap, and we can argue about where you start at, under my proposal, we could increase benefits for seniors by $2,400 a year and extend the life of Social Security for 75 years. Now, that idea is overwhelmingly popular with Democrats, Republicans, and Independents. The only people who don't like it are the very rich. And I think it's time to tell the very rich, enough is enough. You can't have it all. And lastly, I would say this. You know, we are the wealthiest country in the history of the world, but you don't see it when you're traveling in Burlington, Vermont, or Erie, Pennsylvania, or many, many other parts of this country. And that's because, again, so much of that wealth rests in the hands of a few. So I think in order to adequately fund the many social programs that we desperately need for our kids, for the elderly, for working class people, in order to build the housing that we need, in order to make sure that we have the health care that we need available to all, we're going to tell the billionaire class, whether they like it or not, they are going to start paying their fair share of taxes. So, brothers and sisters, the American people want change. The status quo is not working for working class people. People want change. What Trump is fomenting is the kind of change that divides us up, right? One group against another group. That's what demagogues always do. What our job is to do is exactly the opposite, is to bring people together, whether you're black, you're white, you're Latino, you're Asian, whether you're gay, whether you're straight, young, old, whatever it may be. We are the vast majority of the people. And the vast majority of the people want a government that works for them, not just the few. So in the next 10 days or so, let us do everything that we can to defeat Trump, to elect Kamala as our next president, and then let us continue our effort to bring our people together to create the kind of nation that you and I know we can become. Thank you all very much.